Imagine this. A woman finds herself attracted again and again to men who seem charming at first, but later reveal themselves to be controlling, emotionally distant, and narcissistic. She tells her friends, "Why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always attract the same type of man?" Now, you might think this is just bad luck, or maybe her taste in men is poor. But Jung would say something far deeper. She is unconsciously drawn to her shadow, the very quality she has denied in herself. Until she confronts those shadows within, she will keep meeting them outside in flesh and blood. Here's where self-improvement enters the picture. Self-improvement is not just about waking up early, going to the gym, or reading more books. It's about self-awareness. It's about facing the monsters within, the envy, the anger, the insecurity, the fear, and learning how to integrate them. Because until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll keep calling it fate. Let's break down Jung's framework in the context of love. Persona, the mask you wear in society. In relationships, it's a version of yourself you show at first dates, the curated, polished self. But it's not your whole truth. If you only rely on persona, love will feel hollow, like two actors reading lines from a script. Shadow, the dark side of your psyche, the traits you reject, repress, or deny. Jealousy, neediness, aggression, vulnerability. These don't disappear just because you push them down. They leak out in arguments, passive aggression, or in your strange attraction to toxic partners. Anima/Animus, the inner feminine in men and the inner masculine in women. These energies shape what kind of partner you're drawn to, but they also determine how balanced your own psyche is. If a man rejects his inner feminine, he may become emotionally cold and domineering. If a woman rejects her inner masculine, she may become passive and overly dependent. Love then becomes unbalanced, fragile. Individuation, the goal, becoming whole. Integrating persona, shadow, anima, and animus, so that love is no longer about projection, but about genuine connection. This is a Jungian roadmap to transforming love. Now ask yourself, when you think about your last relationship, was it truly about love or was it about projection? Did you really see the other person, or did you see only the reflection of your own unmet needs? Think about the fights you had. Were you really angry at your partner, or were you angry at a part of yourself that you had never learned to love? Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In love, this means that until you face your shadow will choose your lovers. Real-life example, the repeated pattern. Consider the story of Michael, a man in his 30s. On the surface, he was successful, a good job, well-dressed, confident. But in relationships, he kept attracting partners who cheated on him. Time after time, he'd be betrayed. At first, he blamed women. They're all unfaithful, he told himself. But therapy revealed something deeper. Michael had a shadow of deep insecurity. He feared abandonment, but instead of facing it, he covered it with arrogance and detachment. His unconscious then chose partners who would confirm that fear over and over again. When he began working on himself, not by blaming others, but by confronting his own wounds, something changed. He attracted a partner who was loyal, kind, and emotionally present. For the first time, love felt safe. That is the power of self-improvement through a Jungian lens. Love is not something you find. Love is something you transform by transforming yourself. If you want to stop repeating the same patterns, if you want to stop calling your trauma destiny, then the work begins not with your partner, but with you. This is a journey Jung pointed toward, the alchemy of the self, where shadows are faced, archetypes are balanced, and love evolves from projection to authenticity. And in the coming parts of the script, we will dive even deeper into nature projection, the dance of anima and animus, and practical ways to integrate your shadow so that love can finally heal, not hurt. Because the truth is, you don't just transform love through self-improvement. You transform yourself, and in doing so, love transforms with you. When two people fall in love, the initial spark often feels like destiny. The laughter is effortless. The conversations flow endlessly, and the presence of the other feels almost magical. Yet beneath the surface of this chemistry lies a psychological truth. What we are often attracted to is not only the other person, but also the reflection of our own unconscious self. Carl Jung referred to this as projection, when qualities that lie dormant or unacknowledged within us are mirrored by someone else. In the early stages of love, projections create a sense of wholeness. The man who has buried his sensitivity may be drawn to a woman whose warmth and emotional depth awaken that part of him. The woman who has suppressed her boldness may fall for a man whose confidence and courage ignite something she has long denied. Each feels completed by the other, as though they have finally discovered their missing half. But this intoxicating illusion rarely lasts forever. As time unfolds, the shadow emerges. The very qualities that once felt magnetic begin to stir conflict. The sensitive partner may now appear overly emotional, demanding constant reassurance. The confident partner may now seem arrogant or dismissive. What once symbolized balance now feels like a threat. Here lies the silent danger in every relationship, the unintegrated shadow waiting to surface. Think about it. How often do couples argue not about trivial matters like dishes, time, or schedules, but about something deeper, unspoken, and far more primal? These arguments are rarely about the thing itself. They are about the clash of shadows, the parts of ourselves we have not owned, now appearing as irritations, disappointments, and betrayals in our partners. Jung believed that healing in love requires a journey inward, a confrontation with these shadows. Only by acknowledging the darkness within can we stop blaming our partners for carrying it. In other words, the enemy in your relationship is not the other. It is the unexamined self. Consider the story of Daniel and Claire. At first, Daniel was captivated by Claire's artistic, free-spirited nature. She embodied the creativity and spontaneity he had buried under years of discipline and ambition. But soon, her freedom looked like irresponsibility. He criticized her spending, her late nights, her unstructured routines. Claire, in turn, had once admired Daniel's focus and work ethic, but now saw him as controlling, rigid, and incapable of joy. What they failed to realize was that their conflicts were not about money or lifestyle. They were about the shadows they had projected onto each other. Daniel had denied his own inner spontaneity, so he both admired and resented it in Claire. Claire had rejected her own inner discipline, so she both desired and despised it in Daniel. Their love began as a union of opposites, but without shadow work, it deteriorated into a battlefield. The truth is this: love is not the absence of conflict. Love is the willingness to hold a mirror to oneself in the midst of conflict. Jungian psychology teaches us that when irritation arises in a relationship, it is often an invitation. The question is not, why is my partner like this? But rather, what part of myself is being revealed through this moment? The transformative power of love lies in this ability to turn projections into integration. When you stop demanding that your partner carry your shadow, you begin to reclaim those disowned pieces of yourself. And paradoxically, as you reclaim them, your relationship becomes lighter, freer, and more authentic. Imagine if Daniel had admitted to himself, "I long for creativity and freedom, but I've been afraid of losing control." Imagine if Claire confessed, "I need structure and discipline, but I've been rebelling against it all my life." In that moment of recognition, love shifts from blame to growth. Instead of destroying each other with accusations, they could have healed each other by integrating their shadows. This is the sacred work of self-improvement in love. Not trying to fix the other, but bravely confronting what the other awakens in you. And when two partners engage in this work together, the relationship transforms from a fragile romance into a conscious union. Every relationship begins with a spark, the mysterious pull of attraction that feels larger than life. Yet, Jung reminded us that this spark is rarely about the other person as they truly are. Instead, it is about the projection of our inner world. When you first meet someone who excites you, chances are you are not seeing them fully. You are seeing a mirror reflecting back parts of your own psyche that you have not yet integrated. Think of it this way. A man who has buried his creativity, tenderness, and sensitivity may find himself magnetically drawn to a woman who embodies those very traits. He believes she is his other half, but in truth, she is simply carrying his unlived potential, the part Jung called the anima, the feminine inner figure. Similarly, a woman who has suppressed her assertiveness and strength may be enchanted by a man who embodies power and decisiveness. He becomes her living projection of the animus, her inner masculine. At first, this dance of projections feels intoxicating. Lovers feel as if they have found their soulmate. They write poetry, stay awake all night talking, and believe destiny has written their story in the stars. But what happens when the honeymoon fades? The same projection that once felt magical can transform into disappointment, even resentment. The man who once adored the woman's sensitivity may now criticize her as too emotional. The woman who once admired the man's assertiveness may now accuse him of being controlling. Why does this happen? Because projections are temporary illusions. They carry not only the light of our unlived qualities, but also the shadow. When you fall in love, you are not just meeting your partner. You are colliding with your own unconscious. Consider the archetype of Narcissus. In the myth, Narcissus falls in love not with another person, but with his reflection. He becomes obsessed, unable to pull away, and ultimately perishes. In many relationships, this myth repeats. One sees in the other only the reflection of their desires, wounds, and unmet needs. And when reality breaks the mirror, pain follows. But here lies the opportunity. Instead of despairing when projections dissolve, one can choose to grow. This is where self-improvement transforms love. If you recognize that what first drew you to your partner is a reflection of your own inner work, then instead of blaming them, you can reclaim those qualities within yourself. The man can awaken his creativity rather than demanding endless inspiration from a woman. The woman can embrace her inner strength rather than relying on her partner to always lead. This shift is not easy, but it is the essence of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. In truth, your partner is less a perfect soulmate and more a sacred mirror. They show you what you have forgotten, denied, or buried. Here is a provocative question. Are you brave enough to look into that mirror without turning away? Most people are not. They flee when projections collapse, believing they chose the wrong partner. They move from one relationship to another, chasing the intoxication of the initial spark, never realizing that the fire they seek lies within. Imagine two lovers sitting across from each other, both feeling betrayed by the fading of their romantic illusions. But instead of accusing one another, they pause. They reflect. They ask, what did I project onto you? What qualities of myself have I abandoned that I first saw in you? In that moment, the relationship shifts from fantasy to reality, from projection to partnership. Jung often said that marriage is a psychological crucible, a container that can either destroy you or transform you. When projections collapse, you are given a chance to meet your partner not as an ideal, but as a human being, flawed, complex, and real. This is when true love begins, when you can love not only the reflection of your desires, but the wholeness of another person. And here is where self-improvement plays its greatest role. For as you strengthen your inner world, you reduce the weight of projection you place on your partner. Instead of demanding they complete you, you bring your own completeness to the relationship. Instead of clinging to illusions, you walk in truth. And truth, though less glamorous than fantasy, is far more enduring. So the next time love feels like it is fading, do not ask, did I choose the wrong person? Ask instead, what part of myself am I being asked to reclaim? Because the secret is this. Every disappointment in love is also an invitation to individuation. And every projection, once withdrawn, becomes a path to wholeness. Every relationship, no matter how tender, contains a hidden battlefield. And the most potent weapon in that battlefield is not betrayal, not indifference, not even neglect. It is a shadow, the dark, unacknowledged parts of the self that Carl Jung believed hold the truths we least want to see. The shadow is not simply evil. It is not the monster under the bed. It is the unpolished stone, the parts of you that were pushed away because they were too wild, too raw, too shameful, or too unrefined for the light of day. When two people fall in love, they unconsciously invite each other's shadows into the relationship. Love does not only connect bodies and hearts, it connects wounds, fears, and forgotten fragments of psyche. Consider this. A man falls in love with a woman who seems soft, nurturing, endlessly patient. Yet months later, he finds himself enraged at her quietness, interpreting her patience as passivity, her softness as weakness. He is not merely fighting her. He is fighting the shadow inside himself, the part of him that was taught never to be vulnerable, never to soften, never to yield. Her quiet nature had become a mirror, reflecting his own buried fragility. And consider her side. She, too, feels drawn to his strength, his confidence, his decisiveness. Yet later, she resents it, calling it controlling, domineering, suffocating. But what she truly resents is not him. It is a shadow she has repressed, the fierce assertiveness she was told as a child was unfeminine, unkind, or dangerous. His dominance threatens to awaken the fire within her that she has long buried. This is a paradox of love. We are drawn to the very qualities we secretly long for in ourselves. But once intimacy pulls us close, those same qualities ignite conflict. The relationship becomes a stage upon which the shadow dances, uninvited yet inevitable. The shadow, Jung taught, cannot be destroyed. It can only be integrated. But how does this play out in love? It requires a radical act, turning toward the mirror instead of smashing it. When your partner's behavior provokes rage in you, the easy path is to lash out, to blame, to say, you are the problem. The harder path is to ask, what part of me is being reflected right now? What wound is echoing through this argument? What shadow is asking to be seen? Most relationships fail not because people stop loving each other, but because they refuse to see the shadow. They prefer the illusion of innocence, the fantasy that the problem is always the other person, the endless projection of their own darkness onto the beloved. And so the marriage rots, not from lack of love, but from lack of courage. Healing begins the moment one dares to face the shadow together, to say, this anger, this jealousy, this resentment, it is not just you, and it is not just me. It is the shadow speaking. Let us listen. Let us learn. For when couples summon the courage to integrate the shadow, intimacy deepens. Love ceases to be merely romantic. It becomes transformative. The marriage becomes not just a contract of companionship, but a crucible where both partners burn away illusions and emerge more whole. But you must ask yourself, in your relationships, how often have you turned from the mirror? How often have you confused the shadow for the enemy, when in truth it was your most faithful teacher? The shadow in love is not there to destroy. It is there to awaken. Those who dare to face it find not only healing in their marriage, but also a reunion with their truest self. When Carl Jung spoke of the Anima and Animus, he was not merely describing inner archetypes. He was pointing toward a hidden dance that silently governs many relationships. The Anima represents the inner feminine image in a man's psyche, while the Animus symbolizes the inner masculine image within a woman's psyche. These archetypes are not just abstract concepts. They are lenses through which individuals project love, expectation, and disappointment. Consider a man who unconsciously projects his anima onto his partner. She becomes, in his mind, the perfect embodiment of beauty, sensitivity, and emotional connection. He adores her not just for who she is, but for what she symbolizes within his inner world. The danger here lies in expectation. When she inevitably reveals her flaws, her tiredness after work, her moments of doubt, her occasional frustrations, he feels betrayed not by her, but by his own projection. The same unfolds in the woman's psyche. A woman deeply influenced by her animus may project onto her partner the qualities of strength, wisdom, decisiveness, and protection. She expects him to embody an archetypal hero. But when reality collides with fantasy, when he hesitates, falters, or reveals a vulnerability, disappointment floods in. Suddenly, he is no longer the hero, but the flawed human being he always was. Here lies a subtle but profound truth. Projections, though intoxicating, can destroy relationships if they are not recognized. Couples do not only fall in love with each other, they fall in love with their own unconscious images. Now, pause and reflect. How often do you see your partner as they truly are? And how often do you see them as a reflection of your own inner anima or animus? When anger strikes, is it really about their actions, or is it about the collapse of the illusion you once carried? Healing begins when both individuals withdraw their projections. The man learns to see his partner not as an ethereal goddess, but as a human being with her own struggles. The woman learns to see her partner not as a flawless hero, but as a man learning, stumbling, and striving. This withdrawal of projection does not diminish love. It deepens it. It shifts love from idealization to authenticity. Jung described this process as inner marriage, the integration of anima and animus within the self. When a man befriends his anima, he becomes emotionally attuned and empathetic, capable of deep intimacy without needing his partner to carry all the weight of his inner world. When a woman befriends her animus, she discovers her own inner authority, her strength, her capacity to lead, without demanding that her partner be her savior. Look at the relationships that last. They are not sustained by fantasy, but by recognition. Two individuals, who once projected their inner archetypes onto each other, eventually learn to stand face to face as humans. This is the secret doorway where real love begins. It is no longer, I love you because you mirror my anima, or I love you because you mirror my animus. It becomes, I love you because I see you, fully, vulnerably, imperfectly, and I choose you. This is the alchemy of transformation in love. It is not grand gestures, nor endless promises. It is a daily act of seeing and being seen, not through projection, but through presence. And you, ask yourself now, are you still loving an image, or are you loving the human before you? There comes a point in every long-term relationship where the illusions of romance fall away, and reality steps forward with its sharper edges. Some see this moment as the beginning of the end. In truth, it is the beginning of real love, because love that endures is not built on fantasy. It is built on a conscious union between two people willing to face their own shadows and grow together. Carl Jung described this moment of transformation as individuation within relationship. Individuation, in simple terms, is a process of becoming whole by acknowledging, integrating, and balancing every part of oneself, both the light and the dark. And in love, individuation doesn't happen in isolation. It unfolds within the mirror of partnership. Think of the couple who once fell in love through passion and idealization. She adored his strength, his humor, his unwavering confidence. He admired her sensitivity, her beauty, her unshakable warmth. But as years passed, his confidence began to look like arrogance. Her warmth began to feel like dependency. What they once adored, they began to resent. Many couples collapse at this stage, declaring incompatibility. But in truth, what they are facing is not incompatibility. It is the confrontation with shadow. The traits we resent in our partners are often disowned aspects of ourselves. The man irritated by her dependency often hides his own need for closeness, dismissing it as weakness. The woman angry at his arrogance may secretly long to be more assertive herself, but has suppressed that instinct. Their conflict is not just between two people. It is between their shadows, fighting to be seen. Here lies the power of Jung's insight. If they can recognize this projection, if they can see their partner not as an enemy but as a mirror, the relationship shifts from battlefield to classroom. Suddenly, every irritation becomes an invitation to grow. Her dependency reminds him that it is safe to need others. His arrogance awakens her dormant courage to stand tall. This is the alchemy of love, the transformation of shadow into strength. But this work requires courage. It demands a willingness to sit in discomfort, to resist the easy escape of blame. Many people leave relationships at the very point where true growth could begin because they mistake shadow confrontation for failure. But if you stay, if you choose to see the shadow as teacher, you unlock the secret of lasting love. Let us not forget the archetype of the hero and heroine within every relationship. In mythology, heroes do not find wholeness by slaying dragons outside themselves, but by descending into the underworld and facing the monsters within. Marriage, too, is such a journey. The happily ever after is not found in avoiding conflict. It is discovered in walking hand in hand through the underworld of your own shadows and returning with treasure. Real love is not a fairy tale. It is a spiritual discipline. It asks, can you hold the mirror steady while your partner wrestles with their demons? Can you endure the discomfort when your partner reflects your own shadow back to you? Can you resist the temptation to run and instead choose to transform together? Because when two people accept this path, something extraordinary happens. Their bond evolves from fragile romance into sacred partnership. They stop asking, how can you complete me? And begin asking, how can we help each other become whole? That is a foundation of unbreakable love. And this is the secret Jung leaves us with. A relationship is not meant to make you happy. It is meant to make you conscious. Happiness is the byproduct of that consciousness. To heal love, one must heal oneself. To transform love, one must dare to meet the shadow face to face, again and again, until light and dark embrace in balance. Love, at its deepest core, is not a fleeting rush of emotion, nor is it simply a contract to convenience. From a Jungian perspective, love is the crucible in which two souls are tested, refined, and reborn. But only those willing to face themselves, truly, brutally, and courageously, ever discover its real power. The archetype of the self, in Jung's framework, represents the union of opposites, the conscious and unconscious, the masculine and feminine, the light and shadow. And in relationships, this archetype demands a difficult but glorious task: integration. A couple that wishes to thrive cannot rely on charm, attraction, or even compatibility alone. They must commit to individuation, first as individuals, then as a union. Imagine two people, each carrying a backpack filled with fragments of themselves, dreams, fears, wounds, and unlived potentials. If they try to merge without opening those backpacks, the weight of unacknowledged truths will slowly drag them down. But when they dare to unpack together, laying bare the shadow, the persona, the anima and animus, they discover that true intimacy is not hiding their wounds, but allowing the other to see them, tend them, and still choose to stay. This is why so many relationships collapse. Partners believe love should soothe without demanding transformation. They expect acceptance without growth. They want the warmth of the fire, but not the purification of its flames. And yet, love without growth is sentimentality. Growth without love is cruelty. Only together can they create the alchemy of lasting union. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is the heart of the matter. Love is not meant to leave you as you are. It is meant to undo, reforge, and reawaken you into wholeness. So, what does this mean for you listening right now? It means that the next time you long for love, ask yourself, are you seeking another to complete you? Or are you willing to walk into the mirror of relationship to confront what is incomplete within yourself? Are you demanding a partner to soothe your insecurities? Or are you ready to wrestle with your shadow so that your partner is not forced to carry it? Are you expecting harmony without conflict? Or do you understand that conflict, when faced with maturity, is a very engine of deeper intimacy? Transformation in love is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who dare to look into the abyss of their own psyche and not flinch. It is for those who can say, "I will love you not because you fix me, but because together we are brave enough to heal." This is the essence of the Jungian marriage, not a static fairy tale ending, but a living, breathing journey of individuation, where two people hold hands, not to escape life's storms, but to walk straight into them. And here lies the final paradox. The more whole you become individually, the freer you are to love. The less you need another to fill your emptiness, the more fully you can choose them in freedom. Self-improvement is not selfish. It is a foundation of selfless love. So remember this. To love deeply is to grow relentlessly. To grow relentlessly is to confront your shadow. And to confront your shadow is to finally step into the self, the archetypal wholeness, the silent center where love becomes eternal. If you have stayed with this journey until now, let this be your reminder. Do not chase love that keeps you small. Do not settle for comfort at the cost of truth. Seek instead the love that challenges, that awakens, that transforms. For only in such a union will you discover what Carl Jung understood so well. That love at its greatest is not about finding the right person, but about becoming whole enough to meet them as equals on the path of transformation. And so, if this exploration has stirred something within you, let it not be just knowledge, but practice. Look into yourself. Face your shadow. Grow. And when love comes, or if you already hold it, choose transformation over stagnation. Because in that choice lies the secret, not only to lasting marriage, but to a lasting soul. This has been Transforming Love Through Self-Improvement, a Jungian perspective. If this journey into the psychology of love and growth spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, love begins not when you are completed, but when you are courageous enough to become whole.